On the morning of September 6, 1995, Jaswant Singh was washing his car outside his home in Amritsar. A red Omni van pulled up, plainclothesmen forced him inside, and the vehicle sped away. Neighbors watched the abduction happen in the middle of a residential street. But when Jaswant's family tried to report the kidnapping, the local police claimed they had no record of the incident and no idea who was responsible. In 1995, Punjab was emerging from a decade of insurgency that had essentially turned the state into a police zone. Law enforcement had been granted extraordinary powers to combat militants, leading to a climate where the line between legal arrest and illegal disappearance had completely thinned out. While the police focused on armed combatants, Jaswant Singh spent his time documenting civilians who vanished after being taken into custody. Because the local authorities refused to investigate one of their own critics, the Central Bureau of Investigation had to be called in from New Delhi. As the CBI began auditing local police movements, they found that Jaswant's disappearance wasn't a random street crime. The activist had been following a trail of evidence that led directly to the senior command of the Punjab police. The investigation eventually uncovered a systemic practice where police would abduct young men for ransom, kill them in staged gunfights, and claim state bounties and promotions for eliminating terrorists. The logistical hurdle for the police was disposing of the bodies. To avoid leaving a paper trail in hospital morgues, they began transporting victims to local cremation grounds at night, where bodies were burned as unclaimed or lawaris. Jaswant realized firewood receipts were harder to hide. He cross-referenced city wood purchases with bodies cremated. At 400 kilos of wood per adult, he found a massive surplus. Across 3 districts, the wood volume revealed police secretly disposed of 25,000 people. Jaswant took these findings to human rights organizations in Canada, presenting the data to the international community. Despite warnings that his life was at risk, he returned to Punjab and refused the offer of a security detail. The activist had become the state's primary target because he hadn't just collected stories, he had found a way to audit a genocide through simple accounting records. The CBI spent months systematically dismantling the alibis of the local officers. They traced the movements of specific police vehicles and challenged the missing persons reports that the department had used to stall the family. Investigators found evidence of police tampering with witness statements and attempts to hide the red van used in the kidnapping. In some cases, jail records had been backdated to suggest suspects were in custody miles away from the abduction site. As the federal inquiry tightened, the pressure on the local command intensified. Shortly before he was scheduled to be questioned, the senior superintendent of police, SSP Suga, was found dead, an apparent suicide, leaving the department in chaos. The silence surrounding the department finally broke when a low-ranking guard named Kuljit Singh agreed to testify. He provided a first-hand account of what happened inside the cells where Jaswant was held. Kuljit described how Jaswant was kept in an illegal holding facility and tortured. Officers repeatedly offered to release him if he would publicly withdraw his human rights petition and stop discussing the crematorium data. Jaswant refused every offer. This testimony from a junior officer stripped away the immunity of the higher-ranking staff. It demonstrated that even a highly controlled police apparatus could not prevent its own members from eventually telling the truth. The investigation eventually confirmed the worst. After refusing to retract his findings, Jaswant Singh was killed by his captors, and his body was thrown into the Hari K River. The act carried a dark symmetry. The activist was disposed of in the same waters where the ashes of the thousands of unclaimed victims he documented had been secretly scattered. While the man was gone, his data remained. The paper trail Jaswant left behind was so comprehensive that the Supreme Court of India was forced to take over the investigation into the mass cremations. The resulting court cases led to the suspension of the officers involved and provided the first official acknowledgement of the disappearances. For many families, Jaswant's work was the only reason they finally learned what happened to their children. Before his disappearance, Jaswant told a story about a town plunged into darkness, where people were too afraid to move. He said everything changed when one person lit a lamp, proving that the light from a single source could inspire everyone else to find their own match. A state can erase a person, and it can burn the evidence, but it cannot permanently bury the truth, as long as one person is willing to follow the trail of receipts.